Robbie Lauf, Executive Director of the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library, Medora, North Dakota. Good to see you.
Good to be with you, Scott.
You know, we spent the last couple of days at the Hamm Institute, all about powering AI, and all I could think about was all the people that are in the audience are the kind of people that Teddy Roosevelt talked about being in the arena, aren't they?
Couldn't agree more. And it was just 115 years ago yesterday that TR gave his amazing Man in the Arena speech, actually Citizenship in a Republic as it was known then, but of course now it is on a plaque in all of our offices representing people who get in the arena, who make a difference, who aren't much about just talking about doing things, they're doing things. And there's an incredible amount of people here doing just that. And it's a great place to celebrate action and involvement in America and solutions-oriented discussions. So it's been a blast to be here.
Secretary Burgum was here last night. You're kind of familiar with him, having helped him get elected governor and work for him over the years. He talked about 500 million acres of land, 700 million acres of subsurface, offshore. Everything they want to do requires all of that. Talk about what Teddy Roosevelt envisioned with those public lands.
Well, there's been, I think it's a great issue to have for competing for who's our best conservation president. But it's pretty tough to compete with Theodore Roosevelt, who protected lands for both the American public for use, for preservation, but like he also said too, for development. And it's that balance in between those two things that places like this are having an incredible dialogue on. So, Secretary Burgum, of course, eloquently states that. And we want the TR Library to be a place where we can have convenings, much like this conversation today, for people to have dialogue about what that means in modern America. And also globally, I'd say too. TR's impact does not stop at our borders. We may think so, but he's one of the most, if you go anywhere across the globe, he's one of the most well-known and well-represented Americans. And we always say TR is a Rorschach test. What you see in him says more about you than it says about Theodore Roosevelt. And we've heard that from different individuals here. There's a group of delegation from Japan here who is invoking TR's conversations and roles in the Russo-Sino-Japanese War, which won the Nobel Peace Prize early in the 20th century. So it's pretty impactful and incredible to hear how, in both Democrat and Republican administrations, but in particular Secretary Burgum's tremendous connection to Theodore Roosevelt, how he's inspired so many people to have incredible dialogues like that. And we want to have those convenings in Medora.
And ironically, coincidentally, whatever you want to call it, the Theodore Roosevelt National Park, only national park named after an individual.
Yeah.
That president is the most beautiful place on earth.
Agreed.
As far as I'm concerned.
But it's fact.
Yeah, there you go. But it's right next to enormous amounts of oil and gas development, and they work together seamlessly.
Could you imagine a better place for a conversation about conservation, a dialogue on the important issues today, than at the entrance of Theodore Roosevelt National Park, the national park named after the president who is our greatest conservation president? In the heart of the Bakken, the second largest formation of energy transformation in the country, and one of the largest in the world. That is exactly where we should be having dialogues on these important topics. And it's like you said, the amount of impactful conversations you can have about that there is incredible. So we're learning from places like the Hamm Institute and frankly from others as well to see how we can be a relevant place for dialogue as well. And we know we can.
Give us an update on the project. An enormous amount of philanthropy has helped this thing soar. Obviously, some public-private partnerships have helped it soar. But you're at the 20-yard line here? You're at the 10-yard line?
It's hard. I would say we're about, I'd say the 25-yard line. We're 75% funded and over 50% built. And and a key in a project like this is keeping the funded ahead of the built. And we've been very fortunate that incredible philanthropists, including of course Harold Hamm, have been a huge supporter of the global vision for this project. We've raised we're a total of about $330 million of capital. We're currently about 11% public funded, which is a massive amount of private investment in an institution like this. So it's been a great public-private partnership, but make no mistake, the private philanthropy of incredible philanthropists like the Hamm family are why this is able to happen. So we continue to raise money in preparation for July 4th, 2026 to complete the project and then have an amazing celebration of America on its 250th birthday and being a premier event of the America 250 celebration.
I had the honor of being at the beam signing for the event and had a conversation with Ross Perot Jr. And Ross is, of course, a Texan. I knew his father and interviewed him when he was a presidential candidate. And I said some version of what brings you to Medora, right? And then I learned that their whole family foundation is about patriotic philanthropy.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing. Talk about how much of that is out there in America today.
Oh, I mean, patriotic philanthropy has been a bipartisan way to invest in the place that created the opportunity for citizens to rise from their bootstraps and create incredible wealth and generational success for people in job creation. That has really been a backbone of America. And in particular with the celebration of America's 250th birthday, we're seeing a resurgence of people just wanting to celebrate the greatness of America and telling the full stories from the best moments to the worst and learning from them, because the best way to not repeat mistakes is to look back at history. So I would say patriotic philanthropy is having a moment, but it's never necessarily been out of style. So in celebration of America's 250th birthday, I just 3 days ago, I think they had Paul Revere's ride in Boston, recreating the original one if by land, two if by sea moment where Paul Revere went and notified the people that the British were coming. We're going to be seeing moments like that celebrated across the country. And one of the key ones is going to be in Medora, North Dakota, which for me is somebody who knows that the most beautiful place and most impactful place in my life, where the romance of my life began, much like TR's, is in the Badlands, in the heart of Theodore Roosevelt National Park. It's incredible to know that the nation's eyes will be upon us and that we are not flyover country. Quite the opposite. We shouldn't be the last state you visit, we should be the first. And we're going to be making that case, and many people have already made that case for us, and we're building on their legacy. So it's going to be an incredible moment. The philanthropists that have made it possible have been anywhere from, mom and pops dropping $10 in the donation basket in Medora when they buy a ticket to the musical, or incredible lead gifts like the Hamm family have had for the library. So we're extremely, extremely appreciative of all the many people who've made this possible.
Yeah, people should know that the mother of a beautiful new baby, and Robbie's wife's name is Medora. So
yeah.
You can't get more of a love for Medora.
Met her on a blind date in the Badlands. I was hooked from the beginning.
Talk a little bit about this conversation in North Dakota. I love North Dakota.
Yeah.
Part of what we do in talk radio is what Paul Revere did long ago, right? Here's what's coming. Make sure you're aware. And this has been a project that I've just had a labor of love to talk about from the very beginning of its inception. Total nerd, been to about half of the presidential libraries and museums in the country.
Yeah.
16 of them?
16, there's debate, some have different declarations and associations, but 16 is the firm number.
Yeah, so 47 presidents, and obviously some of those had 2 terms, but when you think about it, only 16 presidents.
Yep.
And actual presidential libraries and archives and all the things celebrate them and telling them a story. Only 16 of those exist in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, and for North Dakota to have it at the Theodore Roosevelt Presidential Library in a tourist mecca for our part of the world in Medora is just like Super Bowl Sunday. It's extraordinary to me. Yet there have been challenges in sort of having North Dakotans understand that opportunity.
Yeah.
Do you think we're making progress on that?
Absolutely. I would say this: there are 16 presidential libraries in the system, which is incredible. I live in a world where I hope there are 47, or 46 or 45 with 2 repeat presidencies. But not only did we get a presidential library, we got Theodore Roosevelt. I'm a Coolidge fan. I think he's interesting, but we didn't get Coolidge. We got the most well-known, perhaps, American president outside of Washington and Lincoln. There's a real debate. I always love to note that, we're North Dakotans, so our friends in the South Dakotans, have, of course, Mount Rushmore. When they selected Theodore Roosevelt to be on Mount Rushmore, TR was alive. He was alive. Can you imagine, Scott, in a modern day, having a living president that the country united enough around to put on a mountain like Mount Rushmore? That shows what the country thought of TR then. And it has only improved with time. And I like to say TR is a Rorschach test. What you see in him says more about you than it says about him. He's the favorite president of Josh Hawley on the right and Elizabeth Warren on the left. I think America could use a place of convening to bring us together, to say there's more that unites us than divides us. There's huge issues of significance that we should debate and discuss, but we should be proud to be Americans, and we're a global force for good, and that's what this place will tell. The story will tell. And it will also tell the blemishes of any person. We're all humans, and TR made mistakes as well. But that's all happening in North Dakota, which for me is incredible. For a president who really spent about 2 years of his life in North Dakota, in about 20 or so trips. He wasn't from there, but he said if he could live only one chapter of his life all over again, on his deathbed to his friend, if he only could live one chapter, he would live his time as a cowboy in the Dakota Territory. That's pretty incredible for somebody who had a very impactful life. So we're going to give people that experience. We're going to take them to the Badlands. So they're going to be healed by nature. They're going to see the incredible solace and romance of the Badlands. That changed my life. As a guy from Mayville, North Dakota, a few miles from Minnesota, now TR once famously said, I'm as much a Westerner as an Easterner. I think North Dakotans can say that after this as well. It's uniting us both West and East to be proud of a project that's going to really change all of our lives and impact our kids for generations.
And as that conversation continues in North Dakota, you're a Bison fan.
Absolutely.
I'm a Sioux fan. We have that little rub. But when the Fargo Dome was built, as an example, very controversial. Like, what are we doing? A big box on the prairie. This is the dumbest thing ever. Well, I mean, the ROI for Fargo and the entire state and the region, incredible. I think we'll look back on this at a time. But to get there, there's just this week there was a debate in the legislature over something to me that seemed pretty reasonable to park $50 million and get some matches and then fund it for the operations. Why do you think those things are still clunky, hard to explain?
Scott, I think it's a great question. I think in North Dakota, the thing I believe in more than anything is we can do big things. We are not second tier in our capabilities to have globally important conversations and institutions that we can be proud of. And the TR Library for me is one of those moments. And it's when I go across the state, I hear pretty much universal excitement about the project. What I often do hear is, in addition to that, is I haven't heard about this yet. What's a library doing, and why is it associated with Theodore Roosevelt? So there's still a lot of the story to be told. But what's important to me is that we do something of global significance in the Badlands of North Dakota and invite them to North Dakota, because we need more North Dakota in the world, not less, and we need more people to visit this place. One of my favorite misnomers is the Save the Best for Last tourism campaign in North Dakota has had in the past. I want to be the first place you visit. We are not the place that you should visit last just to check the box. It's worthy of your family coming here for multi-day stays, to see the Badlands, see Lake Sakakawea, to go to Fargo, go to the Red River Valley where I'm from, to go all the way up to one of my favorite places, the Turtle Mountains. And there's incredible stories to be told across the state, and we're going to do big things. So I hope this is the first of many global projects that impact our state. And I would just say the ROI on this for our kids alone is going to be incredible, for them to have the opportunity to be inspired by Theodore Roosevelt. And a moment for me that's important is TR came to the Badlands really most impactfully after February 14th, 1884, when his wife and his mother died on the same day in the same house. And he wrote in his diary, in X, "The light has gone out of my life." He gave up. He was depressed, perhaps trying to end his own life. And he went all the way as far west as he possibly could, which for us, luckily, the train ended in the Badlands. And he got off the train, and instead of giving up on his life, he was healed. And what did he do? He went on to be one of the most impactful humans in history. What do we want our kids who are struggling from anxiety and depression to do? Not to give up, to be inspired. And this is going to be a place that's going to do that. I know in my hard times in my life, I've gone to the Badlands. And I really hope that other people will be able to do that too. And we're going to see impactful change for generations to come. I
think you've just made the best argument I've heard for the state playing a role in doing what it's done. And just explain the fundamentals of that, of how Governor Burgum before and the legislature and now Governor Armstrong and the current legislature have helped with this.
We've had our legislative partners, and I'll say our two governor partners have been just absolutely key in the success of this. We don't have a living president to fundraise. So the state of North Dakota has kind of been one of the most important key partners to making this possible. So successfully, they're still under conversations, the current proposal, but the state of North Dakota has done what's called investing in an endowment that requires us to raise money to receive the endowment. Endowments are ways to operate nonprofits for generations to come based off of significant initial investments. And that's what's currently being discussed. And frankly, it's a very common model. You want to have a pretty significant endowment to operate, because nobody builds a museum to get rich or to make money. It's a public service. And I would tell you this: I think America needs more museums, not less. It needs more statues. It needs more history. And it inspires incredible dialogue. And I just think if we're talking about Theodore Roosevelt and America, we're going to have some good learning going on too.
You just gave me a big idea, because I
like those.
I did not know until this conversation that Teddy Roosevelt was proposed for Mount Rushmore as a living president, as still living. So, South Dakota is always, kind of often confused with North Dakota. Oh yeah.
How many times have you been told when you're out there, "I love North Dakota, Mount Rushmore is amazing"? Yeah.
Many times.
Endless times for me.
Yeah, you just smirk.
Yeah.
So how about this idea? Not only the Teddy Roosevelt Presidential Library, but how about the next Mount Rushmore with Reagan, Trump, right? Why not Trump? We can think of a few others that are historical figures.
It's a mountain, Scott.
Right. Well, yeah, we don't have quite that mountain, but we could find some way, couldn't we?
Well, here's what I would say, absolutely. I want North Dakota to continue telling America's story, and also North Dakota's story in America. So you'll find me to be the most enthusiastic supporter of telling the greatness and the troubles of our country's past through institutions like the TR Library. So Scott, I'd say one big idea should inspire the next, and I'm excited to see the next big ideas for North Dakota.
Great to see you.
Good to see you, Scott.